he's a guru, an icon at selling and leading teams in the delivery of digital marketing strategies, social media governance programs, website development, content marketing, lead generation. And I think that what's important to this is he iterates each year to be top of mind as that guru. So, Eric, welcome and thank you for spending this next hour with us.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. Thanks for the generous introduction. And thanks to PRSA Silicon Valley for inviting me to be your Friday Forum speaker. I'm excited about this.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Eric just a series of coffee table topics. And then we'd also like to get some feedback and questions from the chat so I can pull from there as well. But I guess my first question to sort of kick this off is, what is it inspiring you about, how do you see the social media landscape in this sort of reimagined new now next? And what do you predict to happen for the rest of the year?
Well, so, I, like you, back in 2012, was a social media cheerleader. I remember when I was leading promotions at Rogers & Cowan, which is a big agency in LA, and social first became a thing, and thinking, wow, this is awesome, because now I don't have to depend on the media to get, my clients recognition. I'm no longer dependent on a third-party gatekeeper to get the word out for my client. And I was really excited about that. And I thought, wow, we're disintermediating information and anyone has access to the airways. And I know that I did not anticipate that we'd arrive at this sort of enrage to engage, strategy that people use social media for now, which I think, has really exposed the dirty underbelly of humanity in politics and in marketing as well. What is reassuring to me when I look at research from organizations like SimilarWeb, which puts out a report annually on traffic sources, average digital traffic sources for different categories. And for e-commerce, what we saw both pre and post-pandemic is about 5% of traffic coming from social. So it's funny because on the one hand, in PR and digital marketing, we spend so much time and attention talking about social. But the truth is, when the rubber meets the road, you can't really draw a straight line from social to leads or opportunities or revenue. Now, I guess if you're, a consumer brand and you're looking to build awareness, or you're a major influencer like, I don't know, Kylie Jenner or somebody of that scale, then certainly, you can drive, direct to consumer sales through those channels. But, that's not most of us. Most of us are not enterprise. Most of us are not online influencers. Most of us are slugging it out in the SMB world. And so I think we spend a little bit too much time talking about social. I don't think it's quite as important in social media as in marketing as it could be. And in my book, I lay out this sort of framework for implementing a digital pivot. And I sequence the different media channels. And, my prescription is start with owned media, start with your website, because that's where you convert leads to revenue. From there, you would move to social, but not necessarily to generate leads or transactions, but more just to demonstrate social proof to people who visit your website or who are checking you out that you're legit. And then from there, you go to earned media. That's obviously, the leverage point. That's where you get a lot of growth, because it's one thing to say good things about yourself. It's something else entirely to have someone else say good things about you. You get that third party implied impartial endorsement, which PR brings. And then I think the last channel should be paid, because for me, I don't, unless I'm, got huge VC money and I'm trying to blitz scale, I'm not going to want to invest a lot of money in paid until I know what my conversion rates are. And I'm not really going to figure that out till I've dialed my organic in. And of course, that's owned, shared, and earned. So I guess that's sort of where I am with social right now.
Interesting. So can you give us a user case study that's very simple because you use some keywords here, prescription, and a couple of other words. So can you give us maybe one case study of how you did this? So to sort of engineer this prescription?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you one that I'm working on now. It's a current one.
Perfect.
I'm working with a winery. It's a small family-owned winery out of Napa, and they are selling through a third-party e-commerce provider that is a niche provider to that trade. There are rules and regs around selling alcohol online. And so they came to me and they said, hey, how do we get more traffic? How do we sell more online? We want to do social media. And I said, well, before you do social media, let's get an owned media presence for you. So what I did was I launched a separate WordPress site for them. We put a blog on that site and some pages, and we started to SEO around the varietals that they sell. And, in I think it's been 12 months, if you search dry white Zinfandel, they're number one. If you search Zinfandel versus Chardonnay, they're number one. I mean, I've got them ranking number one for pretty much all those varietals now. So if you think about the intent behind someone who's searching dry white Zinfandel or Merlot on Google versus someone who's just perusing a social feed, obviously the person who's searching has a much higher purchase intent. They're further down the funnel. They're raising their hand looking for what they've got. So rather than spend a lot of time, on Instagram with, oh, I love drinking wine with my girlfriend on a Friday. I mean, that's great stuff in order to build a following. But I really think the value of that for a company like Halleck Vineyard is going to be, people are going to go to the site. They're going to go to the footer menu. They're going to find that little link over to their Facebook page or their Instagram. They're going to click through and just see, do these guys have a community? Are they real? You don't have to have a gazillion followers, but do you have enough that I know that you're legit? I think that's really the value of social for SMBs. It's about demonstrating social proof. You don't just have a toe in the water. You're a real company. You've been around a while. People in your space know you. They're paying attention to you. They're following you. So that's sort of stage two. And frankly, that's where we are now with them after about 18 months. Their sales are up 300% from organic traffic. So I think, that's really something that in PR, we've been too slow to embrace. I think we've let that fall to the SEO community. And frankly, I mean, you've got SEOs creating these, keyword rich posts that are unreadable. I mean, they're just designed to fake out Google. They're terrible. So, I mean, if you know some SEO and you can write and you understand how to tell a good story, I mean, you're punching way above your weight class. And I'll tell you, in all sorts of niche categories, I do this. I mean, so I just got approached by another company that I'm working with that does magnetic eyelashes. So Kylie Jenner has a deal with a magnetic eyelash company, and they're already doing 30 million a year. And I looked at magnetic eyelashes, number one is Cosmo, then InStyle, then other big brands. It's not going to happen for them as easily. But I mean, in areas like, all sorts of niche categories, most categories out there, because most businesses are small businesses, have not figured this stuff out. I still go to lunches or go to parties and talk to people and say something like SEO, and they squint and say, what's that? So I think it's a time of great opportunity, but there is still so much uncertainty in the marketplace about what digital marketing is. When I say digital marketing, people say, oh, Facebook. It's, and Facebook is 5% of the pie. 30% is going to be social, 30% is going to be paid, 15% is going to be referral. These are averages, So if you allocate resources based on where the money comes from, social's 5% of your spend. So that's an example of a company I'm working with now, actually a couple companies.
So this is a great pivot for us. How do you feel that PR fits within the digital business landscape in terms of different industries? I know you said niche, but since this is a PR sort of focus group, tell me your thoughts there. And give me
on earned media. So the cool thing is earned media, it's the leverage point. Like owned media is where you sort of set the stage. I think, shared media is the hors d'oeuvre. And really, earned media is the meal. That's what gets people to convert. Like if you want to sell something or win over, generate a lead or an opportunity, getting someone else to sing your praises, there's nothing more trusted than that. At the same time, and I saw this coming, and this is sort of why I pivoted. Just a quick background on my career arc. So I started in PR, big agency, a lot of entertainment, some tech, sort of saw the internet coming and said, man, this is going to change everything. Launched a company that managed online newsrooms called iPressroom. And we managed the online newsroom for Target, UCLA, Toyota, big companies. And it was great. Launched that company, built it up to a multi-million-dollar company. And I remember when we would go in to try to sell the renewal, because they would buy an annual license, they would say, well, why should we renew with you? What's the value of your service? And we would say, well, look at all the traffic we're bringing to your site. And they would say, okay, so there's a bunch of traffic. So what? What good is traffic? We don't care. Is it selling? Is it converting? And then I realized, man, if you're going to be successful in digital marketing, it's not enough to lead a horse to water. You got to make them drink too. You got to at least capture a lead record so that you can nurture it over time via email or through outbound, and then qualify it and hand it over to the guys on the sales side. And then I went to work as the chief revenue officer, which is basically the person responsible for conversion rate optimization at a $1 billion B2B with a lot of different divisions. And my job was to go through the stack, the back end technology that they used at each division and modernize it. And this is a company that was around before Microsoft, old world company. And so they had a lot of legacy software that had to be pulled out, a lot of business processes that had to be changed, a lot of people whose jobs were threatened by that if they couldn't be retrained, very political process. And that's sort of the 360 view that I've had the luxury of seeing. But your question was, again, just so I put a cap on it,
how PR fits into the digital business landscape.
Right. So I think in the old days, back at those days, there was a lot of different targets to go after. The media sector was healthy, both on the consumer side and on the B2B side. You had print, you had healthy print. And you guys know, you're out there duking it out for coverage. It's not like it was, the opportunities for coverage, for third-party coverage to get someone else, not an influencer, but a reporter to write something about your client. It's slim pickings these days compared to what it was. And so really what's changed is more people are bylining. Now, we used to do bylines before and pitch them to op-ed sections, but I guess the opportunity that has broadened as a result of digital is you've got all these, influencer blogs or agency blogs in your category that are looking for content. Most of them are getting pitched garbage every day from, offshore SEO shops that just create this nothing less keyword rich nonsense that if you were to post it, you would, you wouldn't look like a thought leader. You'd look like a thought repeater. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for bylining if you can write and SEO. But then, of course, the difference is it's about the inbound link. Like the only real reason you're writing that story is not so much for the visibility on the page. Although if it's, a TechCrunch or a Fast Company or an Inc. or, a VentureBeat, all of who I've written for, then, that's going to be great. But most people aren't going to be able to get that kind of visibility because there's just not enough opportunity there. They create their own scarcity to make those opportunities a little bit hotter. So I guess for PR today, there's influencers, which is a scary area because that's kind of like, pitching a lynch mob. And then you've got, press, if you can go after it. I think for those of you that are in the agency world, you're probably dealing with clients that are, barely newsworthy, who want you to go after stories for, a new hire or a new office or a product that's unproven with no clients. or get analyst briefings for products that haven't been adopted by any, enterprise customers yet. So I think it's definitely a lot tougher. I mean, the reason I do what I do now, the reason I sort of switched horses midstream in my career was because there isn't as much opportunity in earned anymore. And that was what I was preaching like early on when I was teaching the PRSA social media boot camp for 10 years all over the country. I did that for national, and I also did it for some chapters. I was basically out there saying, hey guys, don't hitch your caboose entirely to the media relations engine, because that's a law of diminishing returns. You've got to diversify. You've got to figure out how to communicate through own media, although we didn't call it then your website. We called it a newsroom at the time. Through social media, building a following and going direct. And then not so much paid, because obviously that's sort of the one of the four channels that really is squarely outside PR's domain. We don't do that. So I guess, yeah, that would be my answer to that.
Eric, I have a question from the chat section. It's from a wonderful person named Rizalyn. She says, when we talk about SEO, is it a matter of ensuring blog posts and web pages are rich with keywords? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not so much about being keyword rich anymore. It's really more about just being relevant. And what we're seeing with Google is, Google used to sort of qualify page quality based on like keywords. So, if you had a bunch of keywords that were related to the same topic, meaning, they were the types of keywords that when people searched one keyword, they would afterwards search one of the similar keywords. And that's how they would create this sort of group of keywords that they would use to identify where they should put you in their index. But AI is sort of replacing that. Google had released last year a page ranking quality guideline, and it sort of walks through, what they're looking at. And they're looking for, content that's high quality. A few things they do mention, which I think are kind of interesting. They mention, original content, which makes me wonder, how good an idea it is to use stock photography these days. Because at the end of the day, they're just looking at ones and O's. And if they're seeing the same ones and O's on a bunch of different pages, that's not unique content. So particularly for a hero image, I'd be real careful of going with stock nowadays. They're also starting to rely more on artificial intelligence to try to figure out, what a page is about and what high quality content is based on, not just what's on the page, but behavior on the page. Because if someone is on Chrome and they go from Google to your website, well, Google also has information about that web visit, how long they stay, how many pages they go to. So again, just coming up and getting someone to click through, if you bounce, that's not going to do too well for you. If they don't browse deep onto the site, that's not going to do too well for you. So I think SEO is changing a lot. A note on artificial intelligence, just want to put this in there. I mentioned at the beginning, Shaun, like you, we were both social media cheerleaders and we were all excited, about it. And we saw on January 6th, what happens when, there's no gatekeeper and there's no intermediary. We are sort of running full force towards fascism, largely as a result of, direct to consumer information that's, unmitigated. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna shift this. I'm gonna grab a question from the chat.
Did I get too political?
No.
I don't want to divide the group.
No, getting political and being edgy is what we love. But,
okay.
So I'm gonna use an $8 word. Thank God it was pre-written for me. But tell us more about the Maslowian framework sequencing own, shared, and earn media outreach.
Let me do that. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he talks about how our needs are fulfilled based on a sequence, how we have basic needs that need to be fulfilled before we can fulfill aspirational needs. Example. So when the Department of Education decided they were going to start giving out laptops to everyone, and that was going to be a way to make sure that we erase the digital divide between people at a lower socioeconomic status, between people at a higher socioeconomic status. It became clear that, just giving someone a computer, a young child a computer, was not enough. They had to have food, they had to have shelter, they had to have a safe place to sit and use their computer. And if they were worried about those things, they weren't going to be able to deal with their more aspirational needs. So needs are hierarchical, right? We can't think about love until we have a job, or we can't think about raising a family and having children, although some people do, until we've got an income to be able to support them. You can't really think about getting an income to support someone if you don't have a place to sleep. You got to figure out a place to sleep. So they're all hierarchical, and this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I didn't make this up. So what I did was I sort of looked at that sequence, and I applied it to this idea of a digital pivot. And this is kind of the 4-step framework, Maslowian framework in the book. So as you can see, the role of owned media is foundational. If you don't have a place to send someone so that you can convert awareness into a lead record or an opportunity or a sale, what's the point of doing backflips on social media, shared media, number 2, trying to get people somewhere? I mean, you're not going to convert. And, there's a ton of influencers now who have hundreds of thousands of followers and no money. They're broke, right? Because just having an audience without something to sell isn't enough. And just having something to sell without an audience is enough. But if you can't convert that audience into an opportunity, what's the point? So step 1, own media, your website. Step 2, shared media, social media. If you pitch a reporter, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go to your website and check you out. Do you look real? Do you look legit? Then they're going to look at your social. Do people know who you are? Are people engaging with your content? Because let's face it, journalists now are measured based on page views. So if they go to your social and, they see crickets, no one's engaging, the takeaway for them is, well, if I cover this company, it's going to be really risky because no one seems to care about them. They don't engage with their social. So I really feel like you can't even approach earned anymore before you've got owned and shared in place. So when we started, right, pre-internet in PR, we just put together a press kit, sent it out in the mail, and called the reporter, and that was enough. There are no press kits anymore. The web has replaced that. So the minute you pitch a reporter, they're going to go to your website and check you out. If it's not ready to convert their awareness into consideration, if it's not trustworthy, if it doesn't look legit, if it just looks like you have a toe in the water and you're not real yet, they're not going to consider you. And if they see that you don't have any engagement, that no one's talking about you, they're not going to consider you either. So really, earned media without having your owned and shared in place is foolish. And then once you've got those 3 in place, you'll start to see what your conversion rates are from different channels. And then armed with that conversion rate, you could say, oh, well, I know I'm going to do 3% on my search traffic, therefore, and the lifetime value of a customer is X. Therefore, I can afford to spend this much on paid because it will convert and I'll make money off it, or rather than just running blind. Just a little cheat sheet here on what the channels are. So owned media is your website. It could also be a custom mobile app. Shared media is your social media accounts. Earned media is content about you, but with a link. That's the key thing in digital on someone else's website, because that inbound link will increase your search rank. And then, of course, paid media is online advertising. Okay, did I unshare okay, or am I still sharing? No, I unshared.
Actually, we did not see you. We did not see whatever you shared.
You didn't see the screen?
No, it was a beautiful story though. If you want to
see it? Yeah, let me show it again here.
And Shaun, you've got a question from Mega too when you're ready.
You guys see this?
Yes.
So here's the framework. Yeah, and then this was the cheat sheet.
Got it.
So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to fulfill your own. You got to get your website in order before you invite. You can't invite people over for dinner until you clean up, right? And when people come over, you want to be able to serve them something so they're comfortable. And I think that's kind of what sets up earned media nowadays. If you don't take those two steps before, people aren't going to consider you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the overview and the infographic, Eric. So Mega's question was, how do you integrate inclusivity for ADA need on own media sites and integrate SEO? That's a great question.
Inclusivity for
ADA.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a niche. I imagine you're probably with a government agency or something like that.
Right.
So, I can't give you an exact answer on that. I'm not sure what the technical wherewithal is on making sure that you comment stuff out so that hearing impaired people can consume that content. But just a note on compliance, and who knows, maybe things will change now. So I actually, thought compliance was going to be really big. And, we started to see all these sort of social media meltdowns where people would get drunk and mess up on social media. And it was actually a news beat for a while. Like, hey, this guy went half cocked on social media and he's been fired. Or, she posted this tweet before she got on the plane and she was fired by the time she got off, that type of stuff. And so I actually launched a company called Comply Socially. And it's still around at socialmediatraining.com with, 12 different original classes to teach social media compliance, thinking it would be a big thing. And honestly, I did not see a lot of interest. The response, the feedback I got from the industry, just to be completely straight. And obviously, this not to minimize what you have to do at your government agency with handling ADA, but just broader. It seemed like the response from the private sector, at least, with compliance was, what? Non-compliance is a cost of doing business. I'm not going to bother training my people. Yeah, one or two people will screw up. I've got insurance. I've got a compliance department. I'll deal with it. So unfortunately, I think, I was really hoping that everyone was just going to teach everyone how to be social media ambassadors, and that by empowering subject matter experts and sort of going one to many through social media, that would be a way to scale the news feed because you'd have broader engagement. But it didn't go that way. It still has sort of been something that's been snapped onto PR or whoever's responsible for external communications. And, rightly so, those feeds are all minimized because no one engages with them. Who wants to talk to a brand? Nobody really. I mean, maybe you want to talk to Nike, but some little brand, you don't want to talk to them. You want to talk to people. And so I think by missing that opportunity of going the route of compliance and making sure people knew how to responsibly use social media to get the word out without getting their employer in trouble, I think we missed that opportunity. Those classes are all free at socialmediatraining.com. No registration required, no credit card. You can check them out.
Cool. Eric, where clients are underserved, how can PR help?
Gosh, there's so much opportunity right now, I think, to help clients. Let me qualify that statement. So enterprise, I think, is covered for the most part at this point. There's 1,000 enterprises in the world. They figured it out. Can they do digital marketing better? Sure. Can they launch more initiatives? Mm-hmm. Sure. But do they have the tools in place to handle digital marketing? And are they doing most of the stuff that needs to be done already? Yes. So I don't think there's as much opportunity in enterprise. But, most companies aren't enterprise. The driving backbone of the global economy and the US economy in particular is small to medium-sized business. So what is that? That's businesses, that make under $50 million. That's where most of the action is. And, businesses that make under 50, make 10 to 50, that's a real sweet spot because those guys have the money to bring on a consultant. They can afford to pay you a good retainer. And you can really help them because those are the people that haven't figured it out yet. Those are the people that, have all these different software tools and systems that aren't integrated with one another. You got people cutting and pasting client contact information, from an email into a proposal document, manually from a proposal document into a project management document, manually from a project management document into an invoicing spreadsheet document. And there's no interoperability at all. So the more I think you can help companies figure out how to work in a cross-functional digital environment that's interoperable and is end-to-end from where the customer buys to where the company delivers, that's the opportunity, because the company that can get the customer what they want the fastest at the best price is the one that's going to win. And obviously, if you've got a stack that's going to automate all this cutting and pasting and manual, time suck work that, saddles a company that's not interoperable, you could do more with less. So it seems to me that is the big opportunity. Get in there, look at what website are they on. Let me read you a little passage from the book, okay? I think this will.
Please.
Like the shell of a building on the back lot of a movie studio, a website is just a digital facade. To film exterior scenes in a controlled environment, studios build fake streets of buildings without interiors. If they need to get a shot of a performer at an upper floor window, they use a ladder. Imagine how frustrated you'd be if you showed up at a store to buy something and it was just a facade. But a website that's just an online brochure is like a hollow shell of a backlot facade. It looks nice from the outside with its fancy fonts and pretty graphics, but it's not functional. Visitors can't configure and price your products or services themselves. Like a backlot facade, there's nothing there. It's a fake out. So visitors can't find what they need, enter a marketing funnel, and submit a lead form. What's the use? A website is just the presentation layer of your tech stack. It needs a back end constructed from the concepts in each of the chapters of this book. If you're not aware that your website is just one piece of a larger puzzle, you're an analog business with a digital facade. So I think helping businesses build out that back end stack, helping them with automation, helping them with business process mapping, that's something we can do. No one else is doing it. And it's a total land grab right now. And particularly in small business, it's wide open. There's nobody that owns that space. Sure, there's Salesforce consultancies and Adobe consultancies and Oracle consultancies that have a deep bench of highbrow consultants to help enterprise. But how does small business compete? I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a world where everyone works for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And there's a lot of money to be made. So I would say the more you can get out there and focus on helping small business compete, the better world there's going to be and the more money you're going to make.
Shaun, you're still on mute. And you have a whole conversation happening in the chat right now.
No, I saw that. So before I ask a couple of questions in the chat, I'm going to lead in with this. What do you feel are the essential digital communication skills clients need most? And the second part of that is, are PR people equipped to teach the client, protocols and ways of engagement with, modalities for social media, specifically messaging?
You said social media, which threw me off. Did you mean to say that?
Or not social media, I meant digital communications. Got it.
And so repeat it now against one more time for me, because I lost the thought when you heard social.
My apologies. What are the essential digital communication skills clients need most? There's a second part to that, and what is the knowledge base that the PR person should have to facilitate providing that education or thought leadership and teachable moment to the client?
Well, I would say we have the most important skill already, and that's storytelling. Because if you think about what makes news, that's what also attracts someone to a website. So that's, I think, the most important part. We are storytellers. We have that skill. That's the skill that the folks in SEO and marketing don't have. Marketers are selling, they're advertising. We're educating and informing. And that's a big difference. We understand the laws of journalism and the idea of, sort of taking a non-biased, impartial attempt to try to tell the story on behalf of our client. That's how we do it. In terms of like the skills that I think are that people need the most, that are totally underserved, that I think you could develop if you're fairly, comfortable pointing and clicking, dragging and dropping, and using web interfaces. You do not need to know code to do any of the things I'm going to tell you, because they're all now point, click, drag and drop services that you can use to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I said before, business requirements gathering and tech system integration. I think that's probably a little bit more advanced. I wouldn't start there. The areas that I think are really underserved are landing page optimization and conversion rate optimization. So, it's not enough to just, lead the horse to water and make them drink. You have to be constantly iterating and seeing what works. So that means you're constantly trying different pages, trying different button colors. And if you're with a small company, it takes a lot of time because they don't have as much traffic. So getting statistically relevant information is only as fast as you can generate the demand and traffic to give them data to be able to act on. So I think, lead nurturing, conversion rate optimization, landing page optimization, and really the whole owned media stack. And I have, I think, a graphic on that. I'll try to find, but this idea that, you're going to figure out how to build a website that's going to be able to generate leads either through forms, through widgets, through pop-ups, through chatbots, through a variety of different interoperable tools that are going to make you more than just that backlot facade, but actually a portal through which you're going to take a lead into a CRM so that you can build a sales pipeline that you can nurture and prospect against and forecast revenues. I mean, that's digital business. Digital business is getting the lead, pulling it into a system where it can be nurtured and prospected. And then, if it's sold, generating the invoice out of the same system. If it's serviced, generating the service out of the same system. I think if you can bring that level of understanding to the table and start to guide customers, clients through building out that kind of an interoperable stack, I think that's a huge benefit that you can bring to the table, even if you're not the programmer. Like, you don't have to be a cinematographer to produce a movie. You don't have to be a bricklayer to build a house, and you don't have to be a coder to lead a digital pivot. You just have to be able to sequence the specialists in the right order, right? If you can bring that level of understanding and top line strategic generalist view to the table, I think there's huge opportunity for PR to sort of migrate into digital business and digital marketing, particularly for SMBs 50 to 10 million.
Wow. So does this mean that, Carolyn James, who is a friend and a colleague, brings up something very valuable about SEO, but it sounds like there's a burgeoning sort of the SEO PR person, if you will, that's slightly different than the traditional publicists, irregardless of what verticals they work in. But one of the interesting questions that she asked, and I'm going to try to frame this intelligently, at least from my side, is what is clients, especially when you're working with startups and SMBs, they expect immediate results against their spend. One of the things she says is about sort of backlinking, and what is the role of that? How do you sort of driving the PR campaign with backlinking within the framework of SEO, and how to sort of manage and mitigate expectations with that, particularly if an outlet is not interested?
Great question. Great question. It is a slow process. You are looking at 6 to 9 months before you start to see returns from this sort of, direct marketing initiatives online. And so I think developing some sort of a billing model that is going to allow you to deliver that intel without, doing the work is the way to go. And I actually cover this in my book. I talk about this concept of inside out marketing, this idea that you wouldn't actually do the work for the client, you'd bring the insight and intel. So like, I have a number of clients that I mentor and coach where there's some junior person or mid-level person internally that's executing, and I bring the intel. And so I had these programs going with them, and I tell them from the beginning, hey, it's going to be 6 to 9 months until we start seeing results. I'm going to give you 1 hour a week. It's going to be a Zoom with whoever's going to be leading this initiative. And I'm going to show them where the potholes in the road are, where the skeletons in the closet are, and I'm going to accelerate your shift here because I've done this before and it works. And now they're not paying so much on the SMB side that they feel like, man, I'm getting burned. Because I think what happens in the agency world is they go to a PR company and the PR company says, yeah, we're going to get you all this press. And then they sign the deal and it's so much a month. And it's usually a big nut, and then you have to get back to and say, well, we're not ready yet. We got to get you ready. What do we have to do? Well, we have to get your website ready. Okay. Well, we got to get your social going. So rather than pricing that on the agency model and having juniors that you're billing up and housing do that work for them, so you're not competitively priced, let them hire the junior and train their junior directly. You manage them with 1 weekly call a week and giving them assignments. I mean, I've done this with so many companies that work so well. Really, you know what? Pick up the book. Here's where you can get a free digital copy of the book. Okay. Free digital copy. If you want to buy it, it's on Amazon. But a free digital copy is at freepivotbook.com. And just fill it out. It'll say it didn't work, but it's going to work. You'll get the book. Okay. I promise you'll get it. And you'll see, go in there and read about Inside Out PR. It maps out how you change the hierarchy from an internal staffing model to an outsourcing remote workforce model. And you're able to bring this level of strategic guidance to the table at a value for the customer and still make money without, and I think that way of going, if you get them 6 to 9 months to start showing value, then you can move into an agency billing model because you're ready for it. Your own media is in place, your shared media is in place. Now let's start pitching media. And now you're going to start seeing conversions. So that's how I manage those expectations. And, it is a long game. And a lot of companies, I lose a lot of business over that. Companies say, we don't want to do that. We don't want to spend time. Sometimes they come back to me 6 months later and say, you were right, should have gone your way. Sometimes they don't, but I know that if I try to sell that business, I'm going to be in a confrontational adversarial relationship with the client from the get-go. I don't want that business anymore. I've done it before. It's not what I choose.
And then we also have to ask ourselves, do we want to burn out our contacts and the relationships that we cashed in a lot of years earning the respect and of specific reporters, writers, as well as analysts to take that money? So sometimes all money isn't good money, is this distilled version of what you just said to me or what you just shared with us. I want to just switch about how do you look for how do you sort of search for current trends and what tools do you use and keywords and topics as you put together strategic plans on the digital marketing and sometimes PR side for clients?
The way I start is it's how I cover it in the book too. The way I start with a client is the first thing I want to see is their Google Analytics. I mean, that's the first thing I want to see. I want to see what's healthy, what's not. And then once I have that insight, I'm going to pop into Ahrefs or SEMrush or Moz, and I'm going to start looking at what's happening there from a search standpoint. Where's the traffic going? How competitive is it? Can they elbow their way in? Are there some areas where they could get some quick wins? Are they on the map for the right keywords? Does Google even consider them to be relevant to what their customers are looking for? That's kind of where I start. Next place I typically will go is I'll get Hotjar, which is a heat mapping software installed. But it doesn't have to be Google Analytics. It doesn't have to be Hotjar. Any website usage analytics platform would be fine. You could be Adobe. Any heat mapping software would be fine. It could be Hotjar. That's what I typically use. But there's ClickFlow. There's others. Those are the first two things I look at. If it's out there, and often it's not, I like to look at Google Search Console just to see, what kind of conversions they're getting. I like to look at visibility versus traffic because maybe they have a lot of visibility, but they're not getting a lot of traffic. So those are sort of, the immediate ones that I look at to figure out what's going on. And then I just look online at who's winning in their category. And that's pretty much how I can reverse engineer what's going to work and what's not going to work. Obviously, if I look in and I see, oh man, they want to be number one. Great story here. I remember getting a call from a guy who said, I'll pay you anything if you can get me to come up first for language translation. And he was loaded. I'll pay you anything, like millions of dollars, So I do a search for language translation and Google Translate comes up first. And then I go to his website and it's like a 5-page brochure for English for second language training schools. And I say to him, well, we may be able to get you to come up first. We got to build something better than Google Translate. He said, I don't want to change my website. I just want to come up first. I'm not going to take that business, right? It's like, they're connected. So I think sort of looking at the own media presence first, looking at how it's scoring, because look, if I can get in there and I can triple their revenue in 6 to 9 months, I have a client forever, and in a lot of B2C or niche $50 to $10 million SMB categories, you can do that, man. You can. Like I had a guy, kind of gross. I had a guy in pest control come to me. These guys are doing millions of dollars, millions of dollars. And you know where they're marketing? On Nextdoor and through word of mouth. Well, if you wanted pest control, where would you go to find it? Google, but they don't know the first thing about SEO. So it's like, that's a whole category that hasn't even been touched. I really think there's so much opportunity. And so what happens to those categories that don't figure it out? They get disintermediated. Grubhub, pandemic kicks the ass of all the independent restaurants. They all get Square for Restaurants so they can start taking orders via Grubhub. And they realize 6 months down the road, man, we're paying 30% off the top line to do these sales. Well, yeah, we're still in business, but we're not making any money now. We're effectively digital sharecroppers. We've got to figure out how to create our own audience. If I rent someone else's audience, I'm going to pay 30%. Same is true in Amazon Marketplace. You sell through Amazon Marketplace, 30% off the top. You sell through Fiverr, they're going to take their cut. You sell through Upwork, they're going to take their cut. You drive through Uber, they're going to take their cut. But if you can sell direct, if you have an own media presence that allows you to build your own email list of qualified prospects that you can then nurture over time, that's where you've got your healthy margins. And that's something that people are starting to realize now. They're starting to realize, man, I can't go with some tech brand that says they're going to save my life and make me great because they're going to disintermediate me. I remember when Udemy, UDEMY, which is a social network for online training, first propped up, and they said, oh, come do classes on our network and you get 90% of the revenue. Well, not anymore. Doesn't work that way anymore. Now I think you get maybe 30% of the revenue if you're lucky, if you check all the right boxes. So when these guys are in growth mode, they make it real attractive to get everybody on board and make a market. And then once they become dominant, they pull the rug out from everyone. So I guess the takeaway is, when you build your audience on someone else's platform, you're not building your audience, you're building theirs, and they can take it away from you at any time, right? So really, owned media is the only sustainable way to anchor a digital business now. I mean, if you don't have that, you could be deplatformed at any time. Look at Trump. And by the way, Trump was deplatformed on the 6th, which was the insurrection, but it was also the day that Democrats lost the Senate. So my thought is, well, I would imagine the reason that they were deplatformed, the reason that was the day that Twitter and Facebook decided to pull the plug on Trump, is because they didn't want to get regulated by a Democratic Senate. So all they had to do was just deplatform them, and then they're fine. You mark my words. If the Democrats lose the Senate, okay, in the next couple of years, you watch Trump get his accounts back. Now, side note, when he was deplatformed, after that, he launched a blog. And he thought, I'm going to have my own media presence. But it was too late because he couldn't use the visibility on the social networks to cement those contacts back at home. And so he shut the blog down because there was no way to build traffic for the blog. Think about social media as a way to promote and advertise your own media presence so that you can cement those relationships at home. What do you have? What gated content do you have that you can crow about on social so you can get them to come fill out a lead form? What can you give them? How can you make it worth their while to sign up for whatever it is you got? Software, white paper, webinar, free consultancy, I don't know, whatever it might be, an event, any of those things. That's how I would think about social.
We have some career-minded people in the chat and probably watching on Facebook. And you would know this question well, Eric. How can a person pivot their business or career to digital marketing?
Read my book. Get a free copy of my book and read it. Really read it. This is 20 years of experience in a single book. It is a frickin' digital marketing MBA in a single title. It is now the textbook for the Masters of Marketing program at York University. I know Annenberg is looking at it right now and considering making it one of their textbooks as well. It is, as Jay Bear says, in his blurb, it is tactical, practical, and up to date. It is not just about social and all these tactics you can use to try to build a market. It's a really big picture. How do you build a digital business? How does digital marketing fit in? How does earned media fit into that? It's the whole stack. So if what you want to do is be sort of the high level advisor that comes in and commands the big bucks to quarterback a pivot, start by reading the book.
Awesome.
And reach out to me too. I'm accessible. Reach out to me.
Vanessa, you were going to say something about our time?
I was going to say we are at time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Schwartzman, dear friend, for giving us so much insight and knowledge. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to you both. Digitalpivotbook.com. Also the free one. I thought I heard, Eric, you say that the
free pivot book.
Free
pivot book. But what I would ask is please let's not put it in writing. Let's just have it be audible for the people that were on the call so that they get it. Okay.
Will do. Okay. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. We do this for you almost every week. This is week 22. And guess what? Next up, you're going to see us in September. We're taking a couple weeks off, but we have a fantastic lineup coming up and so much to talk about. So much to talk about. We're going to be talking about IPOs on the 10th of September. We are going to be talking recruiting the 17th. Oh my God, there's so much. Sabrina Horn's joining us to talk about her book. And then health and wellness in the industry and how we stay sane. I think that's what the topic is for that week. So tons of stuff to talk about in the next that's coming up. But first, go get your digital pivot book. I know I will. Tons of great information. Eric, I think a lot of people learned a lot about SEO today and how important it is. Thanks to everybody for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye, Friday.
Don't forget, this will be a podcast too, Vanessa.
Thanks, Jerry. Look forward to you doing that. Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you, Eric.
Live stream has stopped.